Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being support and may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace and beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, welcome everyone and good morning. We are on the last talk of this month, and this is the month for the study of Raja Yoga. So today ends our month of study of Raja Yoga. We'll wind up with an open forum. A worksheet is available online as a PDF. You can download it if you wish. We also start this year's Jai Shri Durga chanting today. Swami Swahanandaji, this Jai Shri Durga chanting, Swami Swahanandaji said, this is a most auspicious, extraordinary spiritual practice. Please consider participating. A bulletin with details was emailed on Wednesday. You can read it online and decide whether you would like to start. Today starts, but if you don't make up your mind and then you start tomorrow, just set your goal so that you can make up for it. You'll see the details. That's perfectly all right in the bulletin that was sent out. Please do consider participating. So I'm going to start our Raja Yoga worksheet, our open forum worksheet on Raja Yoga, with some announcements. Monday evening class has been canceled. I would like to know what you would like to do with our Monday evenings, if anything. Monday evenings means 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Starts just half an hour after Arati ends on Monday nights, if we go ahead. Please email me with your comments or suggestions, and they will be very welcome. I mentioned our Jai Shri Durga chanting starts today. The Durga Puja will be done in our chapel at 11 a.m. on Saturday, October the 8th. Saturday, October the 8th. Our pujari is Aditya Chaturvedi, and it will be available to you on Zoom. When you do click on to participate, use the Sunday and special events link, not the Saturday chanting link. So this will come out in the newsletter and so on as we get closer, but use the Sunday and special events link. No in-person participation this year, please, because the lockdown continues. The chapel, however, is open every day from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And if you want to meet with me for a personal appointment, all you have to do is call to schedule that. I would prefer you call my cell phone number. You can email me to get that cell phone number and also suggest when you might like to come for an appointment, and I'll call you back, and then you will have my cell phone number. So before we begin our open forum discussion, is there any comment or question or concern that any of what has been said raises with you? Anything to say from your own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question?
I just wanted to mention that I posted a link to the worksheet in the chat if anyone wants a handy way to get to it.
Thank you so very much, Cindy.
Just wanted to share this information from today until next Sunday. These are 9 nights of mother worship called Navaratri. So it's all over India, and here in the evening, ladies and men all get together and they rotate in circle and sing songs and dance and chant mother's praises. So that's not
how beautiful. Yes, from today until October the 5th.
Yeah, Darshana.
Wednesday, October the 5th.
Yes.
And if you're so fortunate as to be invited to one of these celebrations, they are indeed joyous.
Yes.
So, and it is Navaratri, 9 nights,
Yes.
10 days, 9 nights. And the chanting goes on, the Jai Shri Durga chanting. You can also chant your own mantra. It doesn't have to be Jai Shri Durga, but as Swami Swahananda pointed out, it is an extraordinarily beneficial spiritual practice, both for your own welfare, and he was very emphatic about this, for the welfare of the world. Anything else about any of this?
And one more thing, no special invitation is needed to see the Garba, which is the folk dance type of mother worship. You can go to what is Global Mall or Shakti Mandir, Swami Narayan Mandir, anywhere. Garbas are open to all.
Very good. Thank you, dear.
Sure.
Global Mall or Shakti Mandir.
Yeah, or any other Indian association.
Very good.
Brother Gaurav here, just to point towards Shakti Mandir, they have their Navaratri celebration starting tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Gaurav.
I keep going there. So
Yeah, it's huge.
it is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's all mother's impressions in there, so
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yes, Shakti, of course, is the Divine Mother.
Yes, and they have beautiful mother worship.
Okay. All right. We'll begin our open forum with a review of our definition of Raja Yoga, so that we're all on the same page about what it is we're talking about. This spiritual path is often called the yoga of meditation. Swami Vivekananda, in his statement about the goal of human life is to manifest the divinity within, called this path the path of psychic control, which is done through concentration and meditation. The control of the psychic aspect of ourself, which is what prompts what our waking awareness. it is, our waking awareness is one thing, the active subconscious and the latent subconscious, the psychic aspect of ourselves, is another. This is what we learn to control through Raja Yoga, is that psychic aspect of ourselves. As a Raja Yogi, you use ancient, proven spiritual techniques. When I say ancient and proven, these arose long, long before Patanjali. The dates for Patanjali are not clear, but they are certainly much more, his date, whatever it is much more modern than these techniques. The rishis who heard the Vedas, heard those Vedas because they were practicing deep meditation. And so these techniques go back millennia. Just how many thousands of years is not clear, but they are ancient, they are proven. You can depend on their practicality and on their success if you practice them. This is what the Swamis tell us. It's what the scriptures tell us. So these are ancient, proven, spiritual techniques to do what? To calm your body, quiet your mind, and gain control of your attention. This is what we must do. We must have a calm body and a quiet mind in order to gain control of our attention. Otherwise, our attention is scattered, constantly fragmented by our concerns, our worries, our immersion in activities without understanding the nature of those activities as expressions of the Atman. So regular daily practice, and this is absolutely fundamental. If you're going to practice as a Raja Yogi, you must do it faithfully every day or as close to every day as you can possibly manage. Regular daily practice of Raja Yoga increases your ability to concentrate and may lead to meditation. Concentration is defined by Patanjali and the yogis as the ability to hold one thought, one image, one mantra without interruption for 12 seconds. Meditation is defined as being able to hold that one thought, image, mantra, whatever it is, for 12 times 12 seconds, or 2 minutes, 24 seconds. This is extremely difficult and requires years of practice, whether in this lifetime or another. If it comes more easily to you, wonderful. But that will be, the yogis tell us and the Swamis tell us, that is because of past life experience. Deep meditation can unite you with the divine presence, the Atman, the source of your being. And this is one of the things that is revealed to us by the practice of Raja Yoga. The source of our being is not our birth mother, though that is the source of the embodiment for the Atman. The Atman at conception was brought forth in the mother's womb. And that is why you were born, not because of any physical act. It was this suprahuman, the fact that the infinite took form within your mother's womb. And it's said to be a little blue being the size of your thumb. This is how it's described by the yogis. And it then clothes itself in your embodiment. And with that clothing of embodiment comes all the samskaras. that all the past life experiences, they come with it. And so you are born not as a clean slate, but as a as the infinite being clothed in the samskaras that it is already gathered over eons in various embodiments as it took name and form over eons. This is what Vivekananda and the yogis tell us. If this unity is achieved, and it is achieved, when it is achieved, it is called nirvichara or savikalpa samadhi, and it is the last step in Raja Yoga, in Patanjali's Raja Yoga. This nirvichara is the last step that is the result of your self-effort. Nirvichara means seed, with seed. That is to say that the samskaras are still there, though dormant, and have been subsumed by this one great thought of unity. This unity can liberate you from the cycle of rebirth and death. And what happens, according to Patanjali, is once this nirvichara or savikalpa samadhi is achieved, your self-effort, while it continues, so that you become established in that nirvichara, it is no longer something that you are doing. The seventh and eighth steps, nirvikalpa samadhi, seedless samadhi, the realization of your true being without the mind and samskaras present, which is inconceivable to the mind, but that is that step, and that is then total liberation or freedom from all limitation, independence, which in Sanskrit is kaivalya. Knowledge of the Atman, knowledge of this unity, is the goal of Raja Yoga. This morning, we'll discuss Sage Patanjali's very practical workbook for gaining that knowledge of the Atman in this open forum. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras prescribe 6 methods of self-effort that prepare you to receive direct knowledge of the Atman. Practiced together regularly and over a period of years, these methods can develop a calm, poised body, a quiet mind, and a tranquil way of life. These are prerequisites for concentration and meditation. So we're not going to go over all 6 limbs. We're not going to go over all of those. We're going to talk about the first 2. But before we go on, is there any comment you'd like to make from your own wisdom or experience about any of what has been said? Or is there any concern or question you'd like to raise about what's been said? Josh, I think you had a question.
Yes, Brother Shankara. My question is, when talking about being attentive to a sound, what does it mean to be paying attention? Because if I'm at a rhythm where I'm saying my mantra and the words are finished, and before I say it again, how do you conceive of paying attention to it without the sound being there?
Well, that's the whole point. You maintain the sound. You continue the sound. This is concentration. You don't let anything interrupt that flow or rhythm. By not letting it interrupt, it isn't that you repress it, you simply turn your attention away from it. You return your attention toward that sound and that rhythm. Very important. Ritam. This is very important. This rhythm. And it comes in the repetition of a mantra. And after a time, that rhythm, which is vibration itself, becomes resident in your waking awareness. And so you'll find your mantra appearing, particularly as it's needed, at various times during the day. But the idea is to maintain that rhythm and not allow anything to stop you from maintaining that rhythm. Thank you for that question. Very good.
That leads me to another question, Brother Shankara.
Yes?
When saying a mantra and you want to, can you demonstrate perhaps what the proper way to say it is?
Om Hari Om, Om Hari Om, Om Hari Om,
Okay.
Om Hari Om, like that. But you can
Okay.
do it without vocalizing it, or you can do it just sub-vocally. I'm doing it sub-vocally. And then, or you can just take it all the way into your mind, which is what happens after a time anyway. And you're simply saying it mentally. This is when it has its greatest effect. Because we are creatures made of vibration, when we are vibrating the mind stuff with this mantra, which has tremendous inherent power, it literally transforms the stuff of which we are made. The stardust spacesuit is changed. As Krishna says in the Gita, holiness itself shall transform you. Thanks again, Josh.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Anything else from anyone?
Brother, there's an interesting I was curious, why do the scriptures say that mantra when mentally repeated is more effective? And I made an experiment, like if you repeat it physically, your mind can rest on something else and you can still continue to repeat it. But if you don't even move your lips and you don't repeat it physically, but you repeat it mentally, it's very difficult for the mind to remain fixed on something else.
You're right. It becomes harder. But there is another reason. Repeating it in any way mechanically, that is to say, you're just doing it and the mind has found its way to something else. Even that is efficacious, but a lower level of usefulness. As Sri Ramakrishna said of one devotee who would tell his beads almost continuously all day long, but Sri Ramakrishna could tell that his mind was elsewhere. And so he said of that devotee, what would take anyone else a year will take this man a year and a half. So it has usefulness, but the reason it's best when done mentally is that it is then taking that vibration right to the core of our being and transforming the very nature of our body. Our mind stuff is throughout the body, and so it transforms, and this is what is meant. This is the deepest level of purification. Thank you, Rajiv. Anything else from anyone?
Brother, I also had, sorry, carry on, Tom.
You want me to go ahead?
Please, Tom.
Okay, so I'll make a comment. I've meditated almost every day for the past 11 years. I was just looking in my diary, almost every day for the past 11 years for an hour or more. And sometimes I've been real disappointed by my poor concentration, that my mind wanders as much as it does. I've got several possible explanations. One is that I just have unrealistic expectations. That, I mean, I actually can a lot of times concentrate for 2 minutes and 24 seconds. But I had hoped that I would be able to just sit down, go into a concentrated state, and that would be it. And that's not the case. So one possibility is my unrealistic expectations. Second possibility is that that's just the way I am, you know, that everybody's different. Everybody has a different brain and different makeup. And I may just have a more active brain or more scattered brain. I don't know. But then the third thing I think about is that we're really different now compared to the people that did this. When this was written, or originally, most people couldn't even read. They didn't have paper. They certainly didn't have the distractions we have. The distractions today are just incredible with the internet and everything. And even though I spend an hour or more a day in meditation, I spend more than an hour every day with various electronic devices, you know, computer, phone, and so on. And I wonder if it isn't harder for people nowadays with all of the digital distractions. I wonder if it isn't harder for us. And yeah, that's just something I wonder about. And the fact is, I'm not willing to give up all of my digital distractions. They're too interesting and too enjoyable.
Well, very good. So every upside has a downside. But in terms of the 11 years that you mentioned, Tom, I think it's interesting to note that Sri Ramakrishna's sannyas teacher, Totapuri, his teacher of Advaita, said that it took him 40 years. Now, he started as a boy. He entered that Puri monastery as a boy. I think 12 years old. I'm not absolutely certain about that, but in any case, he was still a boy. He entered that monastery as a boy. He began to practice as soon as he was taught, and he said it took him 40 years to be established in samadhi, that continuous experience of samadhi. And yet there was still more for him to learn, which he learned from Sri Ramakrishna, as you'll read in the Gospel and elsewhere. So this is,
by the time I'm 101, I will achieve this.
or probably not necessary, Tom. You'll probably leave the body and go to the solar sphere, where you'll continue your practice until perfection. This is what Vivekananda tells us of people who, or if as you wish, you may take rebirth, you may take human birth again. Apparently, there is some elective aspect of this after you leave the body. But I can't in any way speak authoritatively about that. I only know what Vivekananda and others have said.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks again, as always, for your straightforwardness and your sincerity. Anything else?
I would just like to agree with Tom about the distractions, so many distractions in this day and age. Even those of us who have sort of calmer, quieter, less engaged lives are still very much engaged, as he said, with electronics and technology. And, you know, I don't think that's a bad thing or something to give up in this day and age. But to me, it illustrates how important it is to look at older and especially ancient scriptures in light of the present day that we're talking about them in.
Oh, absolutely. We must come to understand the frame of reference from which they were speaking. And of course, we are all, as we sit here this morning, involved with an electronic device in order to do what we're doing. So it's our knowledge of how to use these things that enables us to do very auspicious things, as well as perhaps self-medicate through their use. Self-medicate for the ache of separation by a lower level connection through these devices. Thank you, Cindy. Anything else from anyone before we go on to our open forum? I don't want to have.
Brother Shankar, if I may ask a question.
Yes, please.
So the conversation that's been happening so far, I think, is really interesting and applicable probably to all of us. One challenge that I find is I do feel that there's a connection between how we conduct ourselves in day-to-day life and what we engage ourselves in, whether it be technology or how we spend our time in conversations, etc., and the time that we spend sitting and trying to focus. One challenge that I end up facing is I develop a fear of my external circumstances and a sense of wanting to control them in order to optimize my time sitting. But that also leads to a lot of tension, and it feels like that sense of I and control becomes very aggrandized through that, I guess, desire to optimize my circumstances in ways that I might not be able to. And I think that's also probably a hindrance too. I don't want to become more selfish in trying to preserve what I view as, my precious time sitting, even though, how practically or meaningfully how precious that time is probably, overstated in my own mind. So I was just wondering if you could comment on that, the balance between how we conduct ourselves externally and what we give ourselves to, and doing it in the right attitude versus ending up trying to control more, and then sort of this being a counterproductive way of approaching things.
Pritam, what you've done is you've foreshadowed exactly what we're going to talk about next as the opening to this forum. The first two of the limbs of Patanjali's yoga address themselves precisely to what you just talked about. Now, you're talking about it at a relatively high level. Many people are not operating yet at that level, but the problem is the same: how to devote our energy. So let's just go ahead with the prepared text just for that until we actually get the discussion going. So, to begin our discussion, we'll focus on the second of Patanjali's methods, after briefly talking about his launching pad, the yamas. Yama means the restraint of tendencies that keep you at odds with the world, in need of controlling it, as you say, Pritam. Yama means the restraint of tendencies that keep you at odds with the world. When you are habitually harmful to others or the environment, deceitful, greedy, or selfish, immoderately sensual or covetous, calmness of mind is utterly impossible. Now, as I said, Pritam, you're coming at this from a higher level, but the intention is the same. As you even mentioned the word selfishness. It is that selfish desire to control our circumstances. So, as Swami Chetanananda points out, when we're engaged in those at a lower or higher level, those things that need to be restrained, calmness of mind is utterly impossible, a hopeless condition, says Swami Chetananandaji. The restraints are nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, moderation, non-excess, and non-possessiveness. as you slowly abandon these self-centered ways of life and conserve the energy that you used in pursuing them. I'll read that again. As you slowly, and I do mean slowly, this happens over decades to people who want it to happen. As you slowly abandon these self-centered ways of life and conserve the energy you used in pursuing them, what does Patanjali say you can do with that life force? He suggests 5 observances, and this is the answer to your question, Pritam. Here's what Patanjali suggests we should do. These are called niyamas, observances. These practices broaden yama to include your internal world of body, mind, and spirit. A yogi, now here are the niyamas. A yogi practices, makes daily determined efforts to eliminate all forms of inner and outer impurity, to eliminate all forms of inner and outer impurity, to be content. This is addressed directly, Pritam, to you, to be content with the circumstances of their lives, to offer the good, to prefer the good over the pleasant. It's pleasant to control our circumstances. It's good to be content. To prefer the good over the pleasant, to learn from sacred texts and from our own experiences and mistakes, and to offer the results of their practice. Now this is the real gem. That's why it comes at the last. To offer everything they do, which is what Sri Krishna calls living sacramentally. Offer all their efforts and their to offer the results of their practice of yoga to the divine infinite presence. The niyamas are purity, contentment, self-discipline, study of scripture and self-study, and surrender of all efforts and their results to the personal God, Ishvara or Ishwari. We cannot surrender anything to Brahman. We surrender, whatever we surrender it to the incarnate God or the disincarnate God in the form of Ishvara, the masculine forms, or Ishwari, the feminine forms. It doesn't matter whether our chosen ideal is formless or with form, but Patanjali himself, as well as the Ramakrishna order Swamis, and from many, many other teachers, say, offer everything to the incarnate God, the incarnation that appeals to your heart, if indeed that's the case. So these are the yamas and the niyamas, and it opens our discussion of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the 6 limbs. But the more we can focus for this morning on these first 2, the yamas and niyamas, I think the more productive our discussion will be. But that's not meant to restrict you. It's simply a suggestion. And please remember that none of this is meant as personal instruction for you. You are your own infinite being to having taken form. You will find your own way. If something of this is useful to you, most wonderful. If you find little or nothing useful in it, that's because you're on a different path. That too is well and good. So please, anything at all to open the discussion of the usefulness of these ideas of yama, restraint and conservation of your energy from its tendency to self-centeredness and self-advantage, to the niyamas, particularly these ideas of being content with your circumstances and offering everything to the divine. Not that those are the most important, but they are the ones that are very productive indeed.
Brother,
Yes,
can we say that giving everything a Godward turn is the solution?
This was Swami Prabhavananda's phrase for it. Yes, give everything a Godward turn. Make everything somehow relate to the divine and your pursuit of divine knowledge. Swami Sridharananda put it a different way, same message, but he said, divinize your life, everything in your life. Realize that it is an expression of the divine, that the divine is all that exists, thou is all that exists, and our experience of I is illusory. So he said, divinize everything in your life. Understand it is an expression of the divine. So yes, Gaurav.
And if you need to cling to something, some entity, I think this is my experience. It's better to try to cling to God.
Oh yes, far more satisfying.
Be clingy, be absolutely clingy about it means. And then if you actually are able to cling to that, the divine being, I think it calms everything down.
You're so right. Sri Ramakrishna quite literally clung to the feet of Mother Kali.
Clung to Mother, yes.
He literally held fast to her feet. The image, and also mentally. And when he did this later on, when he was no longer serving the image, and when he did it mentally, this was when he would pass into samadhi. He would become one with the mother and then even go beyond that, whatever that means. It cannot be expressed in words.
On those lines, do you think that when Arjuna and Duryodhana both approached Sri Krishna and Arjuna got to choose first, do you choose me, Krishna, or all of my armies? And Arjuna chose him. Subconsciously, maybe he was choosing to cling to God.
Oh, absolutely. This was his friend. He was going to trust his friend. Not this was his friend and his divine companion. So yes, indeed.
He didn't know Krishna was God, so it must have been a subconscious decision.
Oh, he knew at one level, but he kept forgetting because, as Sri Krishna says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he does it because otherwise we can't really. We have to relate to this human being, as Arjuna says when Sri Krishna shows him his full divine being. After a time, Arjuna can't stand it anymore and says, "Oh, Krishna, resume your familiar form. Resume your familiar form, my friend, my chosen ideal." So yes, he knew and didn't know Ramadas.
Brother, there's a character called Golem in Lord of the Rings, and almost like earlier, I think it's easier to recognize golem in others, but I think the more sort of I'm practicing, I'm starting to recognize the golem in myself.
Ah, yes. Yes. Same here, Rajiv. Exactly. Yes. And how do we deal with ultimately what is it that Bilbo and Gandalf offered Gollum? They offered him their love, but he was too hypnotized, and so grabbed for the ring and fell into the fiery pit, fell into Smaug's fiery pit.
Is the ring the ring of ego? Like,
Yes, yes, exactly. The ring is the illusion of control.
What's the difference between deceit and confusion?
Defeat and confusion.
Deceit.
I'm sorry.
Deceit.
Oh, deceit. Deceit. Oh my goodness. How to parse this? When we deceive ourselves and others, we're doing it in order to achieve something. Confusion comes with the territory. To be confused is not to be deceitful. To practice deceit is to try to get advantage, either by deceiving yourself so that you pretend that there is no golem within you, no dark side. And you may pretend that to others also. Oh, I am perfect and a good guy. Trust me. Everybody who says, trust me, beware. So the deceit is something we do to gain advantage in some way. Confusion is our confusion, which is another name for our ignorance, it comes with the territory. We are confused by the actions of the gunas, constantly brushing against our samskaras and activating them. And this is what Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Patanjali's teachings teach us to do, is sink below all of that brushing of the gunas against our samskaras, which generate thoughts and therefore speech and action in our waking state. So we go into what is called yoga nidra, yoga sleep. Below, as we do, we go into sleep at night. We go into regular nidra, regular sleep. And in that we dream, and we have this dreamless consciousness. But when we do it deliberately, we go into this yoga nidra, which is below all this activity of the confusion. And in that silence is where we find the truth. And when we find that truth, as Tom Carr has told us many times, he finds that truth, but he cannot tell us exactly what it is that he found. And any of us who practice for years will agree with him and say something of the same in our own words. Does that get it? Does that
Brother,
Yes, Gaurav.
may I say it's an experience that is very hard to explain in words?
Yes, of course it is. It is an experience. There is still an experiencer. If there were no experiencer, there would be no experience. So yes, it's an experience. And it is the testimony of the great saints that it is in the silence that we find this. We go below Saint Francis, Saint Teresa of Avila speaks of it. Rabia speaks of it. Hafiz speaks of it. Meister Eckhart speaks of it. It's in the silence that we find these things. And they can describe the effects of being in that silence, but they cannot tell you what it is that what it is exactly that motivates them to be different than they were. But
Father
it is
Thomas
automatic and spontaneous. Automatic and spontaneous.
Father Thomas had a saying about it, I believe. He said, I keep forgetting it. Everything, I think silence is God's language. Everything else is a wrong interpretation or something.
Yes, Yes, Thomas Aquinas.
Yes.
Yes. That's very close. Everything else is a bad translation.
Yes,
That's
yes,
what he
bad
said.
translation. Yes, that is extremely brave. Given he's saying that, means I don't know what he went through because of saying that. Not sure.
Well, it's what his sadhana was intense intellectual effort. He wrote 100 books in 16 years. 100 books in 16 years. Each one of them worth reading. I'm told. I certainly haven't. But the story is, but when he achieved his final realization, he said, all that I have done before, all these books, all this is as straw, fit to line the stables of the divine's children, or the animals of the divine's children. All of that is as straw compared to what I now realize. So this is where it truly goes. This is why Sri Ramakrishna couldn't say what he realized in Samadhi either. What he became is how he said it. But he appeared to the people around him when he was in this deepest Samadhi, he appeared around him to be dead. There was no sign of life in his body at all. Anything else from anyone?
Dr. Shankara,
Yes, Uma.
I wanted to share some of my thoughts on yoga. Why
Yes.
yoga? If you look at all the chapters in Bhagavad Gita, or if you think about yoga as used in the contemporary times versus the real definition of yoga as expressed by Patanjali and in the Bhagavad Gita, why does he call it Raja Yoga? Raja meaning royal. So that means that the underlying yoga, the word yoga, under all yogas, call it karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. But the most important thing underlying all the yogas is the word yoga. And
Yes.
What it means is basic discipline underlying all disciplines, which can mean our attitude, our efforts for self-control, senses control, as you said, calming the body, controlling our senses, our mind, and the yamas and niyamas to make it happen. So to me, the most important thing is the basic training of the mind, about which I want to read Paramahamsa Yogananda's.
Please don't read us from Paramahamsa Yogananda, dear.
Oh,
Paramahamsa Yogananda he's talking about Kriya Yoga, which is essentially
no,
Karma
I'm not
Yoga.
talking about Kriya Yoga. He, according to him, training of the mind and our body and its senses. That's
Yes,
extremely meaningful. That's what he says. And
yes,
Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse 11. This is what it says. Yogis abandoning attachment, they perform action only by the body, by the mind, by the reason, and even by the senses for the, and I like this, purification of the self. So
yes.
that is the goal of yoga, purification of the self, meaning our mind, our thoughts, our emotions.
Yes, and that is why it is called Raja Yoga.
Yes.
But it wasn't called Raja Yoga by Patanjali or any of his contemporaries.
Yeah.
This term was coined by Swami Vivekananda
Yes.
when he wrote this book. And the reason he calls it Raja Yoga, the king of yogas, is that it is the yoga that must be practiced. And Krishna says this in the Gita, the Upanishads say it over and over. Meditation must be practiced. It is the king of yogas in that sense. And it is also, it's a pun. It means the yoga of those kings and queens of yoga that actually achieve the results. The kings and queens of yoga being the men and women who practice. Of course, it is also the yoga of kings, because the kings and queens, they must practice meditation, as we know from many stories in the Puranas about the kings learning to
King
meditate or teaching meditation themselves.
King
So-
Janaka used it.
Yes. Not only used it, but taught it.
Yeah, taught it.
And said, give me my teacher's fee before I begin to teach you, because after I've taught you and you realized what I've given, the fruits of what I've given you, you won't recognize a teacher anymore. So pay me in front. It's a very funny story.
Yeah.
So thank you, Uma.
Yeah.
Anything else, particularly about these yamas and niyamas and their applicability to us? What does it mean? I'll just read over again the list of the niyamas. What does it mean to you? What does it mean? I mean, I see what I've done. All right. Purity, inner and outer purity, contentment, self-discipline, study of the scriptures and self-study, surrender of all efforts and their results to the personal God, Ishvara and or Ishwari. If we can devote our last time to that, just any reaction you have to that, or anything else you wish to discuss. But that's just the recommendation from here. What does that mean to you? Particularly the idea of contentment with your circumstances and offering everything to the divine, which Gaurab characterized as giving everything a Godward turn.
Brother, I can say something. So, like, I think in an earlier session we discussed about warm up, and often while mantra chanting, I I try to. There's two states. One is where I'm impatient and I want to complete like the one round or whatever, and then there is another state wherein I don't care. Like the mantra, I will do very slowly and I just enjoy it. And so I feel that is contentment. And as long as that contentment is missing, it's like a sad state of affairs.
Yes, indeed, because what is the lack of contentment is restlessness. And restlessness is nothing more than the mind being jostled, the samskaras that prompt our thoughts, speech, and action, being jostled by the gunas. And so we have to be content even with that. But when we are content with that and practice, we sink below it so that it goes on. It's like sitting at the bottom of a swimming pool and watching all of the splashing and carrying on going on up above. But where you are is very calm and very quiet, sitting at the bottom of the pool. This is something that I actually used to do when I did a lot of swimming, particularly in swimming pools on military bases where I grew up. So it became a metaphor for me later, and I understood why I liked to do that.
How did you manage was it like breath, controlling your breath?
Well, I would take a lot of deep breaths, and then I would just sink to the bottom. I'd let it all out and just paddle upward like this. I'd sink to the bottom of the pool, and I just hold myself there. And I would look up above me, and there would be all this splashing and carrying on. And I could even hear the noise of it, but it was distant, and it was very calm where I was. And in my boyhood growing up, I needed those calm moments very much. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara, this was a really helpful discussion for me. I think one of the takeaways for me is bhakti and devotional attitude is really central to anchoring any of the yama and niyama practices that we're pursuing. And if they're not, and one question that might be helpful to ask is, who am I doing this for? Or what am I doing this for? Is it for me or my sense of accomplishment, or doing the right thing versus is there a devotional, is this an expression of my devotion?
Well, you know, the answer from the motto of the Ramakrishna order, and it's mirrored by some things said by Ramana Maharshi, you're doing it for your own liberation and for the welfare of the world. And what does it mean, the welfare of the world? Ramana Maharshi said, the greatest gift that you can give to the world is to come to know who you truly are. Why? Because you stop creating any disturbance in the world and begin creating only radiance, only radiating that sense of contentment and joy and bliss in the Atman, which is so beautifully described by Sri Krishna in the chapters 5 and 6 of the Gita. So yes, Pritam, this is why Sri Ramakrishna says, bhakti is the path for this age. As Tom Carr and others remarked on Cindy, this is a very, very busy age. Sri Ramakrishna said, he metaphorized it by saying, we're so dependent on food. By that he meant sensory stimulation, not just food going in the mouth. We are so how to do that? How to redirect our attention? He said, essentially the same thing as Chaitanya. Chant the name of the Lord in his glory. And so he gave mantras, and his wife Sri Sharda Devi also gave mantras, and that was how they taught. And to this day, the Ramakrishna Order Swamis, when you take Diksha from them, give you a mantra and some instructions about how to live your life and practice that mantra, so that you begin to discover who you truly are. And who you truly are is beyond description. Beneficent, joyous, blissful. It is Satchidananda made in. Thank you, Pritam.
Brother Gaurav here again.
Yes, go.
Uh, I'm not sure. I think I'm trying to experience God in his different versions and different flavors, and I tend to have this beautiful spiritual experience when I visit the temple and I'm meditating there, and I meditate inside our Catholic church, which is close by. It is very different. It's a beautiful experience, and the experience is similar, and it almost feels like I'm at peace in either of those places.
Yes,
So it
yes,
doesn't matter if I'm sitting in front of the cross or Mother
no,
Mary.
yes,
It
exactly.
is, and
How many existences are there?
I
Swami
don't know.
Vivekananda says there is only one existence. And so,
And one of the altar boys the other day in the Catholic Church, he approaches me after the sermon and everything, like the Sunday Mass. So he was talking to me, and I said, you know what? I'm experiencing God in all his, trying to experience him in all his forms, and this is absolutely enlightening. And we had a very detailed conversation about it, and he was quite intrigued. I said, "Yep, we are talking the same thing. It's the different languages. That's it."
yes, well, I'm sure it was. These were beautiful samskaras for each of you. This is what Patanjali says as he pursues his instructions. Replace the lower samskaras with higher samskaras, which is exactly what replacing the yamas with the niyamas is. We replace self-centeredness, I, me, mine, with a higher set of samskaras that end up saying thou, thee, thine.
Exactly,
That
and
other
that is exactly what we talked about at the end of the whole thing. It was
and
astounding. Means
when that happens, and you begin to be such a grace to the world and to yourself, and that's when contentment arises spontaneously, and but it does not mean that struggle with the golem as that dark self that you were talking about earlier.
it is so hard. It is so hard, brother. Giving up all that attachment to Maya,
Yes, yes, yes.
it's so difficult.
But look what happened to Golem. Golem was a lovely little hobbit, and the ring turned him into this most unpleasant creature. The pursuit of that power turned him into something unsightly and
Yes,
a creature of the shadows and the darkness and deviousness and oh my. Yes.
and he couldn't pass
Not
on actually.
let me not follow Gollum into that
No.
fire.
Yep. And he couldn't move on. Means he was attached to the ring and all its tamasic powers, or
Yes.
I don't know.
Let me not follow Gollum into that fiery pit. He got that ring of power wrong. The ring of love is the only ring that can make me truly strong.
So cling to God, I think.
Yes, love. Cling to
Yes.
love. God. Satchidananda. Ananda means love.
Brother, I was researching about, like, the last time you mentioned Jill Bolte Taylor and, left brain and right brain. And, I like to read like various people and try to see, connect them. And then I read somebody else, and even in that book, they said that the right brain thinks in terms of images. And if you see things like this golem or myths or any such sort of stories, are they a tool of the right brain to teach you, like, instead of using the left mind, you can use the right mind to know?
Well, the Golem certainly was a creation of J.R.R. Tolkien's right mind. Yes, he envisioned in his creative consciousness, he envisioned that entire world of Middle Earth so completely and so fully that if you read about it, you believe in it. And then he used his left mind to give that form in this beautiful capacity as a writer. He was such a great writer, much admired by his contemporaries, and of course, those books are they're loved to this day, The Hobbit and the Ring books that he wrote, and many other things too. But this is the thing. Our right mind, dealing in images. So the artist calls up these images, or the mother of muses calls these images forth in our right mind. And then our left mind gives them form, gives them expression in a way that others can understand it, which is the real function of the left mind. But as Einstein said, the left mind is the servant, as it was just described. The right mind is the genius. We have created a society that worships the servant and ignores the genius. So Joseph Campbell said, we must have another mythology of images. And he mentions people who created these images. Paul Klee, he mentioned in particular. And of course, he's the one who coached George Lucas. Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, was the one who coached George Lucas into the creation of the imagery of the Star Wars films that became so popular. Anything else from anyone? This has been absolutely splendid. We'll do one of these open forums.
Amadas here, Shankara.
Yes, Amadas.
From a place of deep contentment today, born out of, I was privileged to do a sweat lodge yesterday. So I would like to offer a brief public service announcement for she who offers both image and form, and that's Mother Nature.
Yes.
Perfect time as we go into Navratri. She's the least expensive access to the divinity that there is. Putting my hand on an oak tree and holding an acorn in the other hand is an opportunity for deep meditation, and it's a miracle. And I'm surrounded by it. For the month of September, I've been sleeping literally outdoors on my table, and for the first time ever, I remember hearing, before the sun came up just 3 days ago, the leaves were falling. And I've seen plenty of falling leaves, but I've never heard them like that, and didn't recognize what I was hearing at first. It's the big, flat, and they're very dry because it hasn't rained very much in September. And so I offer Mother Nature as a counter posture to the agitation of society, culture, and what we do to ourselves primarily.
Yes, indeed.
Want to tie that into what was being said at the beginning of this conversation of our mind. As I sit for the practice of meditation, part of that process, I understand, is that my mind is going to try to distract me. And we made the analogy of devices. And I offer that meditation for me is like turning my device off. My device will reach a very high level of dysfunction if I don't turn it off. And for me, meditation is that. It's the turning off of my device.
Ah, very good. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's turning off the left mind, which is our device.
Exactly.
That's what gives us, and with which we create name and form. So, and what you said, Amadas, about nature has been the testimony of great saints down through the ages. It was, of course, part of the Greek experience, but also in more recent times, we can read what Meister Eckhart said about how he learned so much, and then actually, having strayed from it, returned to the refuge of nature and to contentment, therefore. And also, for those of you who want to read something truly remarkable, read the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, Baalshem Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement. But the Hasidic movement, as it is witnessed today, is not at all what he founded a couple of centuries ago. So it was very pure and simple in those days. So anyway, just to second what you're saying, Hamadas, that there's there are great lessons in nature, and it is the holiness of nature that can transform us if we're open to it. Anything else from anyone?
One very light comment on contentment, and I think it was Tolstoy or some very prominent author who said, when I go to shopping, in those times even there were shopping, people used to go for their needs and buy. So he said, as I entered the shopping center, whatever they call it, I realized all these things are so things I can do without. That's what he felt.
Yes.
Promoting, buy, still more. You don't have this, you don't have matching shoes, you don't have matching earrings. So when I went there, I said, I can do without any of this. And he came out without getting anything.
Very good. Beautiful story. Yes.
And we were talking about distractions earlier. I'm finding a lot of the distractions I see on Facebook and other things it's saying buy more, buy more, buy more.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Well, that is the function of the society that we've created, is to produce and consume.
Yes.
And mindlessly
yes.
Produce, simply because that's what we are expected to do, and so on and so forth, and consume because that's what we're taught is our right and our privilege. Not to mention,
And it's the Kali Yuga.
yes, indeed it is.
It is consumerism, consumer age.
Yes, indeed. But it isn't the Kali Yuga anymore, Amadas. It is the Satyuga. It began with the advent of Sri Ramakrishna, we're told, Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna, and the Kali Yuga is dying away, but we're seeing its dying transformative powers in such things as the pandemic. Anyway, all right, dears.
you talk more about like the pandemic and the Satyuga aspect, or maybe there's something to read about somebody's thoughts on that topic?
Well, these are my musings, Rajiv. But I don't know of anything directly that you can read except to read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Ramakrishna, his divine play by Swami Chaitananda about the advent of the Satyug, and the fact that Sri Ramakrishna appeared, speaking of the end of the Kali Yuga, Sri Ramakrishna appeared in a vision to his direct disciple, Swami Akhanananda, and he appeared as Gadai, that form of Krishna that is Gadadhar, Gadai, and it means wielder of the mace. And Sri Ramakrishna, in his familiar form, was carrying this enormous, much larger than he was, enormous iron mace. And he said to Akhanananda, these were the words as translated from the Bengali into English. He said to Akhanananda, I'm going to bust it up really good this time. And that was before World War I. And if you remember, you can find this more in his letters than in his talks. But Swami Vivekananda predicted World Wars I and II. He said that Europe was on the point of being utterly transformed and because of its corruption, the corruption of the society as it existed. And this was before World War I, of course, because he died in 1902. So
That came true. France and Germany have open borders today. That was unheard of only
Oh,
100 years ago.
yeah, oh, yes, 50 years ago. All right, my dears, if there's nothing else, we'll close with our prayer, our deep prayer, our ancient prayer, as translated by Swami Yogeshananda. Let there be peace in outer space. Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees. May the gods be peaceful. May the whole universe be pervaded by peace. Let that infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace and beneficence be unto us and to every beloved creature and being everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we be always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our mother and father. And since it is today the beginning of Navaratri, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. For those of you who have pledged already, thank you. And you will thank yourselves. And for those of you who haven't sent in a pledge, you might want to consider participating. As Swami Swahanandaji said, this is one of the most beneficial extraordinary spiritual practices you can do, not only for yourself during these 10 days of Navaratri, but for the world as a whole. The reason being, he said, that as a Durga Puja is beneficial to the world as a whole, for each 100,000 repetitions of Jai Shri Durga or your own mantra, it is equivalent to one of those. And so through the chanting that is done in the centers that practice this because of Swahananda's initiative, literally millions of repetitions of the name are done during Navaratri, and it is said to be very, very beneficial indeed.
So, brother Gaurav here again.
Yes.
So I generally practice Gayatri Mantra, so I keep doing that. That would be a part of this too.
Yeah, you can use your own mantra. Yes, indeed. So the thing to do is just send me an email telling me how many you would do additionally to what you would normally do during a day's practice.
Okay.
And so just send me that email if you would be so kind.
Yes. Yes, brother.
Anything else from anyone?
And we just have to practice like wherever we are doing daily, or is there any sort of ritualistic thing that we have to?
No. You just sit quietly wherever you would like to sit quietly and chant either Jai Shri Durga, Jai Shri Durga, Jai Shri Durga, Jai Shri Durga, Jai Shri Durga. Swami Swahananda says it takes about a second to say Jai Shri Durga. So you can count 60 a minute. And so if you can do 10 minutes, that's 600 reps on that day, in addition to whatever other you are doing. And if you chant some other mantra, then you would chant that. But in addition to what you ordinarily do during the day, that is the extraordinary part of this. All right, dears, there's no Monday class, but Tuesday we're continuing our study of the life of Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi. Wednesday we continue our study of the book Divine Grace by Swami Ranganathananda. And next Saturday we will, which is the 1st of October, we will continue our study of Swami Prabhavananda's translation and commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, titled How to Know God. And that Sunday, the talk will be, what is it we are trying to quiet? What is it that we are trying to quiet? And we'll approach that from a Jnana Yoga perspective, because the Jnana Yogi also must quiet the mind. All right. If there's nothing else, so wonderful to have been with you. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Shri Durga. And away we go.